Okay, so General Glasnovich, let's talk about book publishing. You've lived in communist Yugoslavia and Croatia, that was part of it, and you've lived in and still live in Croatia that is free and independent. Was life different? Is there any difference in what books a person can go and buy and read and publish?
Well, as you know, Bulgarians lived in a similar system after 1944, 45, where you had every newspaper article was owned by the Communist Party, their ideologues. So you would find at least, there was a saying, you could find at least 2 lies in every news editorial at minimum. So if you read a paper, you needed a lie detector. So this is, that's the devil's work. The devil basically the devil can quote Holy Scripture, but he's the king of lies, the emperor of lies. So basically the whole communist system is built on a lie, a fallacy. It's a pseudo-religion. And that is why today we had to say, for a soldier, we just have the partisan version of the war. The other part is virtually unknown. Now it's slowly being dug up. So we have to rewrite our own history. That's not revisionism. Revisionism, see, what happened is the leftists, the Bolshevik Satanists and these socialists, they've distorted the word revisionism, because revision, it means to revise, to make new. But this to them is like holy water to the devil. They're allergic to the truth. But I think the tragedy today is that a lot of people don't read anymore. Say, for example, my English was almost my second language, my Croatian. I left when I was 8 years old. But say the English language has maybe 40,000 words, the Webster's Dictionary. And over the centuries, over 100 years, 150 years, people don't even use 9,000. And people get their information from Wikipedia, for example. And people have short attention spans. People don't read anymore. But I think we have historians that English is, the way English is a universal language. We have historians in the West that write better things about Croatia and military history and our history than our communist cadres these communist shills, trolls on our universities. And because I think Croatia, like Bulgaria, is one of the post-communist countries that never passed lustration laws.
We didn't.
Yeah, but somewhere I read, at least partially, it was the church, I think the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, they declared communism a criminal enterprise.
It's not just the Bulgarian church. A lot of churches have done so, but we still see the, how should I say, paradox of communist Christians who lament the Soviet Union, who lament communist Bulgaria. I assume you have the same in Croatia.
I think this is the total, you cannot mix light and dark, lies and truth. So these are nominal Christians that follow some sort of ceremonial, the sacraments, you have First Communion or confirmation, but that is not Christianity, nominal Christianity. I think the biggest atheism today is apathy. A lot of people are apathetic. Christianity is an active religion, not a passive religion. That means if you see something wrong in society, you yourself will correct this on the spot.
So would you say this is what you did in the 90s? You saw a great injustice and the entire Croatian people had to act to undo the evils.
I think, again, I think the main principle of life is leadership at every level, in civilian life, in school, in your company, in the army is leadership. So if you lead by example, then that's a start. You cannot have a healthy organization that's based on the 10 communist documents. No one can pay me as little as I can do. Work a little, steal a lot. God made his own beard first and stuff. These are communists. It's a total. Communism is a total inversion of Christianity, but it is also a pseudo-religion. It's a secular religion. And as you know, Marx was a big fan of Lucifer. So the worst thing communism did is it destroyed the moral fiber of nations, the moral fiber. It destroyed the foundations of Europe, which Europe was built on. Christianity, the Ten Commandments. And for example, we have the apathy. The word idiot comes from the word, the Roman, or the source of the ancient Greece. Because in ancient Greece, so the cradle of democracy, they say, is that every male of voting age was obliged to participate in the building of society, or his city, his village. If he did not do this, they called him idiotus, an idiot. So I think in the world today we have a lot of idiots.
But how do you save people? How do you make them want to care about politics? How do you make them care about society, about their country? How do you instill those values inside them?
Well, I say one is leading by example. Another is this, we're talking now. If you talk to someone, if you correct someone, if you say one drug addict, if you say one poor person, that's a victory. So as a soldier, as a responsible citizen, you must take care of the lowest classes of society, children, widows, and we cannot support, as a Christian, the murder of millions of children by abortion. See, in America alone, since Roe and Wade, 75 million children have been aborted in their mother's womb.
Well, thankfully, the Constitutional Court ruled that Roe versus Wade is no longer in effect, so...
It's still, yeah, but it depends which state you're in.
Exactly, so it's no longer a constitutional issue, but that's, how should I say, that's the business of Americans living in America. What can we do for our people here?
But it's coming here. Europe, which is the cradle of Christianity, let's say the Middle East, but which is Europe is Europe, Festum Europa. But all these, unfortunately, we're copying the worst fashions from the West are coming here.
Well, you could say that they are copying us because abortions were legalized in the communist countries decades before they were in the West.
Yeah, it's a two-way street. But also, you have drugs, for example. Drugs were illegal in the United Kingdom till the 1960s. And then if you were a heroin addict, you could walk into and get a shot of heroin. Now you have thousands of people dying in the street. Inner cities in America are totally being destroyed. You have in Canada 9,000, 10,000 people dead just in the last few years, just in one city, from fentanyl. But if you're a Christian, you're going to fight against the architects of death, which means abortion, legalization of drugs, and euthanasia. Euthanasia now, in Canada, there's a law on the table. If you're depressed, you can ask for euthanasia.
Which is monstrous because you could just work out, eat properly, find friends, find hope in the world, because there is hope, right? There is something worth living for.
Of course. I mean, when I worked in the provincial police, we escorted criminals to hospitals. And you see children, they're having chemotherapy, they're fighting for their life, kids, 6, 7, and he's dragging this stand behind him with the IV, intravenous. And then you have these criminals, the guy that's wasted his whole life, robbing people or selling drugs. And this guy's fighting for life, and this guy's destroying his life. So it's all about morality. But I say again, unless you have the basic moral foundations of a society, this society will collapse. Because that's what happened to the Roman Empire. It's happening now. And I would expect the way the world is going, this is not defeatism or pessimism. Maybe in 10 years, Christians again will be in small communities, like in the catacombs.
Or in Egypt.
Or in Egypt, yeah. The Copts in Egypt.
They are the lowest class, and they can only work the dirtiest jobs.
Yeah.
Because there is segregation against them, and nobody talks about this.
Yeah, they're like the Hindu untouchables in India, the Copts. But you don't read. The problem is that you won't find this truth in mainstream media. For example, if one synagogue if somebody throws a Molotov in a synagogue, that's front page news. But if you burn, like in eastern India, northeastern India, I think they burnt 30 churches, Catholic Christian churches. This is not front page news. So we live in a world where perception is more important than reality. And the problem is the mainstream media, and people get their information from the internet.
Yeah, but the internet gets information from somewhere else. And I think that one of the most trustworthy sources is books. So we should fight for better books.
True, I agree. But
so is the book publishing sector in Croatia better now than it was in the 90s and the 80s?
Yeah. Well, I would say certainly better than in the 80s. People certainly do read, but I think for the curriculum in schools, what they're taught to read, I think, are basically, you still have all these former communist cadres. This is the problem. These people are indoctrinated, and because history is not a smorgasbord where you pick what you want. History is history. So you must have the complete picture. And books are books. I'm sure there are Bulgarian books that should be translated into other languages, which I don't know of. But throughout history, you have books that are, I use the word loosely, classics. For example, when we talk about historians, I think 2 books that everyone should read, or 4 books. One is called Stalin's War by an American historian. It's an excellent book because he also went to when I read a book, I look at the sources. So if the book is the text of the book, look at the footnotes, the sources, and who is because there are very few objective historians.
Unfortunately.
But this is a classic, and also a book by Frank de Cotter. You have 3 books. If you want to understand what communism is, it's a history of China from the takeover in 1947. The first book is called The Tragedy of Liberation. They say liberation. We had liberation in Croatia. Liberation. You had liberation here, Bulgaria. The second book is Mao's Great Famine. And the third book is the Cultural Revolution. And this totally reveals, it's because I never say Bolshevism. I say Bolshevik Satanism. Because people have no depth of knowledge. I think the average Croatian may read not even a book in one book in 1 year.
Really?
I don't know. Well, I'm just saying. Well, if you look at the American average.
So how many books do you read in Croatian per year?
It's hard to say. I go to a bookstore once in a while, but I also have my flaws. I mostly read military history. I have one-track mind.
Well, that's not a flaw.
No, well, flaw. But yeah, I try to read other. And I also, you must know what the enemy thinks. So I pick up these weekly magazines that are totally in the hands of these people behind the scenes that are making this new world order. One is Time magazine. It's a weekly magazine. It's published in 60, 70 countries. And another one is The Economist. And as you know, when you look at the texts and you see where this is leaning. And it's no small. It's not a miracle that we have in the European Union Parliament a groupation of former communist parties called the New European Left. Yeah. We had pedophiles there. So Europe is shifting from its foundations. It's shifting into, I would say, postmodernist anarchy. We have a morality that the 3 most destructive, I think, ideologies. One is modern art, for example. The second is Freudian psychology, and the third is this Bolshevik Satanism. And these are destructive ideologies. Say, when you look at art, for example, Michelangelo paints the Sistine Chapel. Is this art?
He wasn't even 30 years old when he did this.
Again, yeah. When you look at to get the title of master in your if you were say a craftsman, you needed to get a guarantee from your syndicate to say you're a master. Look at the violin, the Stradivarius. They can't replicate that today. You have Beethoven, Brahms, and what do we have now? What is the hymn of the European Union? Is Beethoven's
Nice.
Ode to Joy. But we're shifting away from this, and we're shifting into I think it's a new dark age. We've advanced technologically, but we regressed spiritually.
And I would even say we haven't advanced technologically that much, because the last great invention was the supersonic engine. That was in the 60s. What have we invented after that that really changes our life for the better?
Yeah, it's true to a certain extent, but we're moving into a new world where AI will play a big. It's another. I won't say it's another industrial revolution, but new technology will shape global politics. It will shape warfare. Not that much, but we see now in Ukraine the use of drones.
Yeah.
We see the use of night vision devices. We see the use of pametno streljivo, precision munitions, which means if you fire you have a mortar tube, you fire a grenade at a mortar tube, that grenade is primed to hit its target from the top. Before you just had, the last World War fought was the second generation equipment. Now, every soldier is equipped with a night vision device. But that doesn't always help, because in the end, the guy that wins the fight is the guy that's in the trench, that's well-trained, that has good leadership. A good example of that now is we see in Palestine, in Gaza. Israel has 80, 90 nuclear nukes in the Negev desert. They have the most modern, they have the Merkava, the heaviest tank. They have powerful air force. They have small arms, Tempala mortars, and they still haven't cleaned out these Hamas guys. So again, if you're fighting in a built-in area, urban area, that's military operations on urban terrain, there's 101 ways to die, and technology will not always help you. But since I'm not a scientist I can't talk about fossil fuels or nuclear energy, I'm not an expert there. But I think basically that the new scam is these eco-feminists, this green revolution, because it may succeed in the West. And I'm saying it may or may not succeed. I'm just saying you have now, European Union has
the Green Deal.
The carbon emissions should be lowered by 2030.
Yeah.
It will never happen in China. It will never happen in India, because India has doubled its production of coal in the last 3 or 4 years. So in Africa has the most natural resources: titanium, uranium, platinum, diamonds, but they're tribal wars. These countries are dysfunctional. They cannot function, and as we speak now, there are 15 million Africans sitting on their suitcases getting ready to come to Europe.
And again, we would have to look back to history to see to the last time when millions of people were coming to Europe. Did something good come out of that? Did something bad? We would need history to help us predict the future, right?
True. You cannot understand what happens today and understand what happened yesterday. That's an old axiom. But now the population, I think the population of Africa will double by the population of the Far East will double.
And our countries will not double in size,
True.
Unfortunately. But I would like to talk about something else, ustaše. This is a very, how should I say, people who use it usually curse. They say this like the way Westerners say fascist. Like this is a very bad thing to be called ustaše here in the Balkans. But is it really that bad? Like, were the ustaše people who wanted something other than an independent Croatian state in the end?
Well, the word ustaše does not begin in 1918 or after 19. You have, for example, in Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatians that fought against the Turks, ustanici, to rise. Ustani means to rise up. And the ustaše did not fall from the sky. they were an answer to the Greater Serbia terror in the 1920, 1918, 1920, and no one sees what happens before 1941. What happened before 1941? Between 1918 and 1941, Serbian troops, they killed thousands of people, and even in the Balkan Wars. You go back to the Balkan Wars, Kosovo. In 1912, you have the America, it's a neutral commission, the Carnegie Commission for International Peace. They come to Kosovo, and what do they see? Burnt villages, raped women, thousands of people massacred. This is on the internet, Carnegie Commission. So you had your experience with them in the Balkan Wars when they stabbed you in the back. So 1918, and there were some Croatian fools, I say idiots, that wanted a united South Slav, but we have neither culturally nor mentally any sort of, I would say, similarities between them. Because for me, the Drina River it's also a border between mindsets and cultures. Croatia was part of Central Europe for many years, although the Turks invaded most, as you had the same experience. Serbia was under the Turks for 500 years. Croatia was mostly under Austria-Hungary, but a lot of it was occupied. What left was the remains of the remains. There were no books in Serbia until the 19th century, until or I should say Bosnia and Herzegovina. There were no books until the Austrians showed up, Austria-Hungary. But between the two world wars, you had Serbs massacring. They shot my grandfather was member of the first Croatian Republican Peasant Party in 1918, then became the Croatian Peasant Party, and they shot the party leader, Stjepan Radić, was shot in Parliament in 1928. And another guy, a few guys were killed and wounded. And then another guy took his place, President Predevac, became president, and he said, "Nikad više u Beograd, never again in Belgrade." So they killed him. And my grandfather said, "This is not for me," and he joined the Ustaše movement.
So you are trying to get this period, this very long period, into the people's minds. How do you do it?
Well, I'm not the only guy. I try my best, but there are authors that have written books already on this topic. And we also have books now that cover also some of the part of the military history. A big part is we have the political history. What's missing is the military history of the operations in the territory of the former Yugoslavia between 1941 and 1945. But basically now, some of it's coming out now to the fore, some of this now. I think you have this publication, Access. I forget, I don't know if it's an international publication, but they've produced some unit histories, for example. Yeah, because some of the fighting went on till, I think I mentioned to our associates here that one of the last pitched battles fought, the last battle in European soil was fought in Ojak, Croatian troops against partisans in May of 1945.
And what would you say about the book that you have helped promote, Jasenovac's Town Hall?
Well, this is a society called the Society of Historians Rudolf Horvat. And I think we need this type of material. They're young historians, and their president, Blanka Matkovic, she is studying in Warwick University in London. She's also a very bright person. She's written a lot of books. They've gone into the archives. This is not the only book they've read or edited. They found books of, for example, people that have been killed by the communists after the war. They've written on other topics. And you're unearthing a buried past, because this was forbidden to talk about in the former Yugoslavia. So we have young historians that are coming to the fore. But I'm not an optimist as to who's remained in the universities. You still have these old brainwashed descendants. I call this criminal communist chromosomes. They're genetically passed on to other generations.